Westeros meets Themyscira. That'll be interesting.
One thing that wasn't mentioned, and it probably not the right place for it, but I wonder what the level of maturity will be for that slate. Actually, you know what? That's good conversation for when we actually talk about it. So, Donovan, let us know when you're kind of done perusing that.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, Jacob? How's it going, buddy? Welcome.
How's it going, man?
Oh, they got some more emojis here in YouTube now. Interesting.
Some of those look like the character faces. What's that game that we played? They have the arms you'd swing.
Oh yeah. Heave ho.
Heave ho. Some of them look reminiscent of that.
I can see that. Yeah. Huh.
Just tell your employer you're doing research, Jacob.
That's right.
Yeah. Our podcast is work friendly.
It's just gonna be emoji chat. Okay, I watched the video, so I'm caught up.
Okay. All right. I'm ready when you guys are then. All right. What's up, Internet? You are listening to the Make Geeks podcast, a podcast for makers, families, and geeks.
What's up?
Hey, gentlemen, happy February.
Yeah.
Happy February.
Happy
Groundhog's
Day.
Day.
Yeah.
Is that even a thing anymore that people pay
still
attention to?
People still care about it, apparently.
Was today Groundhog's Day?
Mm-hmm.
I swear that this is the first I heard about it.
You'll hear about it again tomorrow.
Yeah. You saw a shadow, so 6 more.
Wes, that was clever.
Thank
that
you.
was clever.
Thank you.
Quick tonight.
That was good.
Yeah.
What have you guys been up to this week?
It's one of those
We need
weeks.
a super cut. Need a super cut of like the noises you make after Sean asked that question at the beginning of every episode.
And, after 292 episodes, it's not a surprise question. We have to sit back and think about, well, what did I do this week? And still silence.
Well, yeah, celebrations and for some things, and whatever the opposite of a congratulations is for other things. Some good news and bad news in our community, and so that it's sort of like a weird dichotomy. It's on my mind recently. It's sort of masking other things that have happened, and before yesterday and today. Just nothing too crazy. It's been really rainy here, so I haven't been able to do anything outside. The front and backyard are like basically swamps, constant rain. So the dogs constantly go out there and get all muddy, just doing their business, and that's pretty much the highlight of my day right there. All my kids are back in school, so Grant, my son, is on year-round track, or year-round school, and so he was tracked out, and so he's back in officially for a couple weeks now, and so just getting used to that new normal of having no kids running around. My daughter had her 12th birthday, so that was exciting. I was on an aircraft carrier. Did I talk about that? I don't think I did.
You mentioned
going.
you were going to be going, but
Yeah.
how was it?
It was good. You know, I went on the USS Yorktown with my son's Cub Scout pack, and there were a couple other packs on there. And so the ship is from World War II, and they have all kinds of cool stuff on there. They used it during the Vietnam War and the Korean War as well for various things. And they have a flight deck that has a lot of period aircraft on there, including some stuff that was, you know, the high-tech stuff that was used at the time I was in the Navy, which wasn't that long ago. It was only 20 years ago. But some of the stuff is already phased out, it makes me sad. So they had a F-14 on there, a Tomcat. They had a Hornet on there. They had the predecessor to the airplane that I worked on, which is the E-2C Hawkeye. They had an E-1 Tracker, I believe it was called. And I had never seen one in person. They looked really goofy if you ever look at one up. E-1 Tracer. And it looks like a fat, chubby version of the Hawkeye that has no business flying. It looks really weird. And then, like, from that base design, there were other designs that sort of in that same family. And so there's like a handful of aircraft that look really similar, really derpy, and really kind of chunky. And they don't look very sexy at all as far as like military, like cool hardware. You're like, what is this guy doing? Like, okay. But it was cool. We went to Fort Sumter. We took a ferry out there and got some history, some pretty interesting history out there. I didn't know all the details of some of that stuff on the ground, and so it was cool. It was a weekend of history and sleeping in uncomfortable quarters. So the ship that I was on the most was on the USS Enterprise back in the day, and I thought I was roughing it then. Apparently it's only a couple, like 10, 15 years of a span between like when the Enterprise started and before that when the Yorktown started. I guess they didn't upgrade the sleeping quarters at all for the Yorktown. I don't know. They basically they had bunk beds, but each mattress basically, okay, if you think of like a chain link fence, okay, think of a section of chain link fence just on its side with a mattress on it, and that's suspended from the ceiling on chains. And one of the sides is attached to the wall, so it's not completely swinging, but it has a capacity so you could like push it up and it like hinges up along the wall. But then they hang two more racks underneath that. So you have three like this. And yeah, on the Enterprise they had like basically boxes, the metal steel boxes with one wall open that had like a curtain you could draw for privacy. This didn't have any walls along any of it. So it was very open, very very rudimentary, I guess you could say. But it's amazing what people went through. Just when you think you had it bad, the people had a lot worse before that. But it was cool. They gave us free reign to like, there's like self-guided tours, like several decks below. So there's like one other dad and his kid and myself and my son. We're just like wandering around at like 9 p.m. like in the bowels of the ship, like in the engine room area, and they have it all kind of set up like a museum, and so that they have like mannequins in the period, you know, outfits and stuff like that, like kind of manning the different stations. So you go by like the galley and the boiler room and like the radar room and all these different things, and they have things set up to simulate, you know, people living. So they have them dishing out, you know, plastic food. It looks, you know, sort of realistic at a distance. Wax food, and there's like fake eggs that are cracked on the ground, and you know, like in the galley, and it's just kind of interesting. They're showing like this living space that's no longer living. And one interesting thing, if you were watching my Instagram stories, I cannot escape the Raspberry Pi apparently, because I'm wandering through the ship and everything. They did a great job of keeping the maintenance up on these exhibits and stuff, and like having all the things working, except this one display in the ready room, which is like front and center. I walk in and there's basically the equivalent of the blue screen of death on the Raspberry Pi. Has a little Raspberry logo in the corner, just a bunch of text gobbledygook of stuff not working. And I took a picture of that because I thought that was kind of hilarious that I can't get away from it no matter what era of vessel I'm on. Like,
did you offer to fix it for him?
No. But it was interesting. They said only 50% of the ship was actually like tourable, basically, and the other half it's still like sealed or not fit for the public, I guess, and not renovated. And they said there's even voids that are still in the ship that just contain oil from back. They never like drained it, so the Navy just basically makes all the armament not work, and they make it so it can't actually sail under power. You can tow it around if you wanted to, but it's been sitting in the same place for like 30 years. So it's got like 30 feet of mud. It's not even moored to anything. It's just sitting there. Which apparently in a hurricane, like a big hurricane that had gone through there one time, it actually moved it a significant amount, which they got surprised. But yeah, they said there's tons of oil still in the bowels of the ship, in like the voids in between spaces, and there were like crews that were like wandering around the ship when we were there, and they just would like go into a porthole, shut the door behind them, and disappear. And the people working there said they were like sort of assessing the situation because they don't want the sides of the ship to like get a hole and it would actually leak the oil out into the bay, into the ocean or whatever. And so that was kind of interesting. It's like a kind of problem that you just like kick the can far enough to you're like, oh man, we should probably do something about this. They had to hire engineers to figure out what the heck to do with it. It's interesting.
I'm surprised they don't just pump the oil out.
Well, just trying to like the logistics of getting the pumps down as far, like it's so many different levels and passageways, and
yeah,
and they don't even know where they all are. I don't know exactly, but it's just, you know, they seal off some of these areas for decades, and then they open them and like, oh, this is not right. Or
what was your son's impression of everything?
He loved it. We both had a great time. It was super fun. He loved the planes on the flight deck, and he loved wandering around the ship, and like some of those stairways, they're basically ladders. They're extremely steep. It's kind of like going into your attic with a pull down set of stairs, but like slightly steeper. But replace all the wood with metal, slippery kind of metal, and yeah, it makes a recipe for a good time with a bunch of 8-year-olds running around.
I saw the picture of your son in the briefing room, and I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Highly recommend it. If you're down there in Charleston, that's where I was, in South Carolina, go check it out.
We have I think it's a battleship. I don't think it's an aircraft carrier, but we have a battleship somewhat near us. It's about like 40 miles away that we'll probably take a tour of sometime. I don't think you could stay the night on it, but if I ever go, I'll take pictures and send you. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, apparently Sean from Tinkering Rocks told me that the USS Hornet, which is a carrier, is somewhere out there in California. I haven't looked it up, but it's a floating museum, and they said you can, if you have scouts or other things. He said he did it with his boys, so might be something cool to look into.
It's cool. That's very cool. I've been deep in content creation. I've had a video come out on my Baba Makes channel. I've been putting out a video a day since I created my Once Upon a Workbench 2 channel sequel.
Now, do you think that has had similar effect as when we were releasing a video a day? Like a negative impact? Have you just seen it
I'm not sure.
effect?
Right now I'm just trying to build my library back up.
Yeah.
As I get closer to the end of what I'm going to repost on that channel, I'm going to slow it down quite a bit. Probably do 2 a week.
I was going to ask you. I was wondering why you didn't just do 1 a week, because that actually would build up a pretty good consistency over time. I was surprised you were releasing them so fast.
Yeah, like I said, I want to build the library back up so that if any of the videos like get, picked up by the algorithm, that that people who come to the new channel who had never been there before will be able to have, a little catalog to view around with. Like I said, so. I am going to slow it down because I have new projects coming out. I've hinted about this before, but it's officially been delivered. She's opening it tonight, so I figured I could talk about it. I built a house for Jessie Ueda for her squirrels, based on Terrytown in Breath of the Wild. and so designed out a 2-story squirrel complex that I built for Jesse and Gary and all of the squirrels and animals that she has at that property. It was huge to pack up and ship out. I finally, if you saw my story on Instagram, it took up the whole back of my car. The box was ginormous. It was like $200 just to ship this thing around. But I'm like, it's finally done. It's out there. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And so I have the video for that coming out pretty soon once she opens it and I get all the footage for that as well. I've got a Feel Better box, a Japanese style keepsake box that I'm almost done with, that I made for my son for when he's not having a good day. He can have his Feel Better box and go find a quiet spot and go play with that. And I'm building my next Ninjago weapon, which is based on a Lego piece for a set for a part of the series that hasn't even come out yet. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve on this one instead of being 10 years behind. But it's been busy. I've also started another ARG. I have nothing that I'm putting this ARG together for. I just want to do it to have it just in case we need to use it for something. But it's been fun going through and developing puzzles and graphics and whatnot for my next ARG. So I've been busy with all that. But you, Sean?
Just a quick callback. It is the USS Iowa battleship that's here in San Pedro in the port of Long Beach. So, yeah. Anyways, this week I haven't been doing a whole lot in terms of making. I don't know what's holding me up. I think just time's going by too fast and just can't seem to get started with something. That being said, I just sent in an agreement this morning for another laser. But with good reason.
Back on the bandwagon, huh? Or off the bandwagon?
It's this weird thing, and I'll talk about this because I don't think I've talked about it on the show yet. I have this weird FOMO that sits in or is kicking in because I know like the main 5 or 6 people that get stuff first and get product first when a company releases something. And Xtool just released a 40-watt diode laser. So they now have a diode that's roughly equal to a standard CO2 at 40 watts. And people are doing tests, and they just released the first couple review units out to the main people, and they're cutting through a 2x4 with the thing. It's kind of like a demonstration thing, not really a practical thing. Like here's how I want to cut wood. I just think it has a capability that it can do that with the 40 watt. Wow. And I like the idea of getting some of those things first. So I don't know if that's a path I want to go down because I do like lasers. So I think I have to kind of keep in the game with reviewing them. Besides, the offer that I got this morning was for a 20-watt diode, which I don't have yet, and that's kind of the one I've been waiting for. Not the brand that I want, but at least the wattage for that. And they want that out pretty quick, so I'm going to expect to get that laser probably the next 3 or 4 days, I think. I'm also working on a kind of a travel Lego case. I'm working on a display for all my Muppet minifigs that I have, the Lego Muppet minifigs. I'm going to be doing like a recreation of the Muppet Show stage. I'm thinking about using what are they called, popsicle sticks, and cutting them to look like wood floor and paint it. So we'll see when I get to that stuff. It's stuff that's been on my list for a while.
That'll be super cool.
And at work, I got a couple new toys today. I got 4 Anycubic Cobra Max 3D printers in. So I get to put those together and test those. They're large enough to print a full-size helmet in one pass. So I'm hoping to have some fun with that. And I guess that's what I've been up to.
That sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah. More toys. Never enough time for all of them. So Wes, you want to kick it off for for something pretty important to talk about first? You want to start with that?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a mention to one of the people that are very influential in the maker community to myself on a personal level. Helped me get several projects off the ground, and sort of was one of my first close friends, I would say, that I met in the maker community, and that would be Andy Berkey. If you follow him on Instagram, you have a constant source of inspiration, and kind of he's always putting a good kind of a positive spin on things, and he's always posting the most amazing builds that are just kind of jaw-droppingly gorgeous. And unfortunately, the news came down that his shop full of tools, including his garage with his 2 vehicles, were destroyed in a house fire. Apparently his house is okay, from what I understand. He and his wife and his dog. I'm sorry?
Garage fire or house fire? Was it
was
like exclusive to his garage?
It was exclusive to his. Sorry, it was exclusive to his garage and shop, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Which is super lucky, especially if it is attached. I've not been there personally, but either way, it's very, very lucky. He lost all of his tools, from what I understand. The pictures look pretty grim, and the community is banded together with a GoFundMe, and they're sort of just sort of rallying behind him to show support, because he often is the person showing support to so many other people on various parts of the pecking order of makers, as far as, like, you know, people that are famous or not famous or whatever. Like, he sort of, his inclusion in the community predates almost all of that, as far as, like, people having big audiences. You know, he's always been there. So if you have any feelings of a desire of wanting to help out, head over to my Instagram, and I have on my profile I have a link to his GoFundMe. But you can also just easily find tons of people on Instagram posting about him, and you can find the links everywhere. Jimmy DeResta, Bob, lots of other people that are in our community that have larger voices than myself have been calling for help for him. So hopefully he's up and running once all the literal smoke clears. Hopefully soon. And yeah, I can't even imagine, like, to make it is sort of not important and petty as possible. Like, all the shop stickers he had on his garage door, he had so many shop stickers from different Instagrammers and, like, makers and stuff, that it's just, you know, the one thing that physically matters the least in terms of monetary value. Like, he collected those things for so many years, and, like, so many interesting little creations other people have made for him of his work. Like, he has a little logo that is on a hat here I'm showing up to the screen. It's like a little bald his name is Seymour. He's like a little character. He's kind of like his brand that he puts
Seymour
on
Make
stuff.
Better.
Seymour Make Better, yep. And I have a stocking cap here with it, and there's, like, t-shirts and things that he hand makes most of the stuff he sells, with the exception of that hat. And people would create things with that character on it and send to him. Yeah. Like, there's a stained glass that was, you know, destroyed, and other things. And so it's cool to see the community banding together. I had no doubt that they would do that, and they're still doing that. And I just wish them the best.
Yeah, I think I've probably seen at least 60 different posts from different makers, kind of stating something similar to what you just said, Wes, about, you know, what had happened and the GoFundMe, and you know, trying to help any way possible. And I think it's kind of a testament to the impact he has and has had on the community. I got to meet him in person years ago at Maker Faire, first time we went there, and just, it was cool meeting him in person. And because we talked online and other things. And for a period of time, he was doing YouTube videos, mm-hmm. and he did, like, some tips videos for a while and some, like, inspirational stuff. And there was a pretty good period of time where I was listening to that whenever he was posting it, and it helped a lot. What he had to say was pretty impactful to a lot of people. I don't think he's made videos much in a while, but I think a lot of it is taken up because of he's been doing some pretty important restoration work for I don't know if it's one single church or different churches, but this amazing artisanal craftsman work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
What's the name for it? It's not lattice work, but like all the decorative stuff that he's been working on in his shop.
He's done like a relief sculpture. I can't remember exactly.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It was huge
Yeah.
because the last time I saw it, it took up like his entire workbench.
I think there's a different name. I think there might be another name for what you're talking about. Not event.
Bas relief. I don't know.
No, but the ornamental
Right.
stuff I think
Yeah.
has a different name too, and I don't remember
does.
what it is. But yeah, just amazing work having to go in there and match things that are I don't even know how old they are, but very, very old. It's a very specific type of craft and craftsmanship needed to be able to do that.
Yeah, he would repair all kinds of things. Like you don't even think like when you go into a church, especially older ones that are like Gothic or cathedrals or other things, like all the ornamental structures behind, like on pipe organs and on the outside of the building, and you know all the stuff on the altars and all kinds of things. I don't even know what the words for them all are. They're just kind of decorative things that you just sort of don't notice after a while if you go to church a lot. You don't think of it, but someone's got to make that stuff, and he's one of the people that is trained to make and restore the things. You know, he had like little sculptures and statuettes and stuff that people would bring, like literally like Jesus' head would fall off or Joseph's head would fall off, and he would like reattach them, even if it was something that's, you know, not necessarily woodworking related, but he would tap into different kind of crafts and be able to create something out of any material to, you know, help out. And like what you were alluding to, he had a piece that went over like a doorway, and it was as big as, you know, a gigantic workbench. That is like the biggest mold I've ever seen. Which, like, I don't know if they stored that on the side of the church or if he stored that in his shop. Even that mold that he pulled from that cast, that model that he spent months, you know, hand sculpting. Hopefully that wasn't destroyed, but I don't know. But that's just a very quick example of, you know, when you're in a shop for as long as he was, you just accumulate so much custom tool, you know, custom tools for specific jobs that either aren't made that much anymore because it's like such a niche thing that who knows how he acquired half of them. And yeah, it's just incalculable in a way.
Like, this is his job.
Right.
This isn't a side hustle or like anything like that. Like, this is his job.
And just for a little bit of reference too, we actually had him as a guest on this podcast. It was episode 63.
Wow.
If anybody wants to go back and listen to that, and maybe we'll do a post. Probably give a little bit more insight into him and his work as well, because I'm sure that we had that full conversation with him at that time. Although it feels like forever ago.
It does.
Which it just might
230 episodes ago.
It was.
Oh, that was 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he is annoyingly upbeat about the whole situation, I must say. Which doesn't surprise me. That's how Andy is, but man, he's allowed to get bummed out a little bit, but he doesn't show it. He always has a positive spin on things. Like he spent a long time working on like this baptismal font, I think it's called. Like it's a covering for like a holy water pedestal. I don't forgive my lack of proper terminology, but it's like this very elaborate dome structure he made and painted, and has like all kinds of fancy ornaments on it. And it was in a church that after he had like said goodbye to it, within a month or so, the church got broken into in the door right leading to this fancy thing he created, and there was like all this destruction and debris all on the floor around it, and he got called to, you know, check it out. And he did like a quick Instagram thing saying like, oh no, this, you know, something happened. I'm en route to find out what happened. Everybody was like, oh no, what's going on? I hope your thing is, I don't want to see the debris or the outcome of this. And he goes there, and everything around it is like messed up except that one piece, the people did not care to mess with, I guess. And he got super lucky. But even the time, that he was potentially going there to see all this hard work destroyed, he was like so upbeat, and it was amazing. Like, he just like would get in the guy, the person's shoes who did this, who apparently was like a homeless person that broke in and needed somewhere to sleep for the night or something, from what I remember. And he's like, just spinning it in a way that I didn't even think about, being in that person's shoes, like, needing a place to stay or somewhere warm, and that looked very inviting. And there's, he took a different humanistic kind of approach to the whole situation, which is very commendable and crazy. But yeah, wish him the best. And it leads
Absolutely.
us to our sort of topic that we'll kind of delve into a little bit here is, if we had the opportunity, either intentionally or unintentionally, to restart your shop from scratch, how would you do it differently? What would you focus on? Would you get any different tools? Would you spend the $70 on this Craigslist table saw that's liable to chop your arm off, or would you get a saw stop? Speaking from personal experience.
When's the last time you used that table saw?
I used that saw like a month ago. Thank you very much.
Oh, really? I'm
I
kind
did.
of surprised.
I did.
Mr. Not a Woodworker.
Well, I get trapped in like a corner, like a feral animal, and I have no choice but to woodwork to get my way out of it. And so I'll do it.
That sounds like something like a honey-do list or something you had to do.
Yeah, I had to rip some piece of wood that didn't exist at the store in that dimension, and that was the only sensible way to do it. So yeah, I'm a dust.
Do you kind of like pucker up and then like tense up
Yes.
and push it through?
Yep. Basically, I have my trusty Duresta push stick that I got at an auction or something a long time ago.
Is that the triangle one?
Yeah, it's the triangle one.
I always thought that one was pretty cool.
Yep. And it has not gotten a nick on it, so I guess I've been doing pretty good. But most of the time, it is a shelf in the middle of my shop. I admit, it's a flat surface to put crap on.
I probably do a lot more woodworking than you, and I don't think I can even see my table saw right now. Partially because it's winter and I can't get out there and to do a whole lot of stuff. I guess I could go first a little bit. So I have a pretty decent collection of tools. I guess relative. I mean, there's a lot of people have more than I do or less. But when you take a look at all the standard woodworking tools, I think I have all of them except for a lathe. That's probably the only machine I don't have. And when I think about what I use on a regular basis, there's probably 3 or 4 machines I could do without. If I was starting over, I would possibly almost adopt like the Steve Ramsey. I forget what he calls it, like woodworking basics. And kind of keeping it simple. I'd still want a table saw no matter what, but I'd probably just do a table saw, a band saw, and maybe
Drill press?
like a basic
Hand
sander.
drill?
Yeah, something hand stuff. I mean, as far as big machines, I'd
Okay.
probably keep it very down because I also have a planer. I also have a joiner, which I almost never use. I could probably cut about 25% of what I have in my shop as far as like woodworking tools, and still be okay. When I remember when I was first starting out, I would treat the Rockler catalog like Playboy magazine, just like drooling over everything in it, and this is like a tool of the month that kind of folds out like this.
Yeah, look at the deck on that joiner.
Centerfold.
Yeah. And I think I bought a lot of stuff out of thinking it would add to convenience, when a lot of the stuff just ends up being, moved around to different spots because I don't have a really good, place for a lot of things. So I think I'd definitely end up with less. But maybe the same type of machines that I have in terms of like even the brands. I think the machines that I bought, I don't think I've had to replace anything yet. so everything has lasted. But I mean, this isn't what I do for a living or anything, so I could probably get away with having some of the lesser quality brands, I guess, compared to what people say. I don't own like any DeWalt stuff. I don't own Bosch or Milwaukee or Makita. Just, you know, basic store brands that you find at any of the big box stores. So as far as like woodworking stuff, I think that's kind of how I think I would start out. Have you guys?
Wow. I've been, with all the news around Andy, I've been thinking about, that kind of hypothetical question. And like, I don't want to say I wouldn't be upset about losing all my tools, but I would be heartbroken because like most of the stuff that I've made over the past 6 years are in my garage.
Right.
Like, oh man, that would hurt. Like losing my planer, yeah, it would suck, but like losing my tool cabinet, my hand tool cabinet, oh, that would hurt. And so like I try to think of hypotheticals. It's like, okay, instead of everything burning down, losing everything, like what if you just start over? And I think between the three of us, I do the majority of like not traditional woodworking. None of the stuff I make is traditional, but I do most of what I make is woodworking. And so like that would have to be where I would start, is with, I would start with the basic circular saw, drill, and I guess circular saw and a drill. If you got to start somewhere, start there. But I think in terms of machines, the first machine I would probably get if I had to start over from scratch would be a CNC. Just because I love my K40, and that I've probably used that more than any other machine in my shop. But if I had to start over, and considering all the things that I do, that's where I would start is with the CNC, because I could get more versatility out of a CNC than I probably could out of any other single machine or robot or whatever. Yeah, that's where I'd start.
So quickly, that's evolved, because I remember not too long ago you had never used a CNC machine.
I know. And now I think of the last 6 projects that I've made, 4 of them have involved the CNC. So it's, yeah. And now that I've started getting into 3D carving on the CNC, man, that unlocks a whole unlocks a whole new axis right there. But just the trying to do as much as you can with as little as you have, like that, I think would be the most vital tool for what I do. Simply because like woodworking, I do a lot of the woodworking, and a lot of the stuff that I build can be done with the CNC in some aspect or another. So I got to start there. Another one of the tools that I would probably get right off the bat would be a Dremel carving tool, just because of how much I use one of those. Which doesn't seem like a tool that I would get right off the bat, but I would probably get one of those right off the bat.
Yeah, that was the tool that is probably my oldest tool that I own, not from a different generation that I've inherited or anything like that, but just one that I purchased. The earliest is my Dremel. It's when we first got married, my wife and I. I got a drill with like a big old 18-volt battery that they don't make anymore. It's like a Black & Decker drill. That thing's still going. It's outlasted the generation of batteries, so I have to buy like generic ones on Amazon now. The thing's still going, and then the Dremel is still going with the same carrying case and everything. I've probably lost half of the little bits or whatever, or replaced them throughout the years. But yeah, the little cutting wheel on there is probably my most used thing. That, and I got like a little attachment to sharpen our lawnmower blade. It has like a little piece on it. It's got like a little you replace part of the head, and it has like the perfect angle that you slide the lawnmower blade in, and has like a metal grinding.
When you have a chance, send me a picture of that. I'm curious.
Okay.
I might want to use that to sharpen some other things.
You could use it
like a little jig for your Dremel that you just like.
It's basically
like
a jig. Yeah. It's pretty useful. Besides that, I'm trying to think for myself. What would I replace? I would probably get a air filter sooner than I did in this shop because there's no external windows, and I probably need another filter for it too. But like an air filtration thing that hangs from the ceiling, like with a remote control, I use that a lot to help evacuate some of the dust and smells and stuff in here. And I probably should have invested in that sooner. The dust extraction thing, I have one of those too, but I don't really have any permanent hoses hooked to that. I just kind of hook it up as needed. It's mostly in the way.
Is there something that you guys have now that you use that if you lost it, you wouldn't replace?
That's a good one.
Like the table saw? Like, would you replace your table saw with another table saw? A janky $70 Craigslist table saw.
I got my money's worth out of that for sure. And this thing is like a cast iron. I think it was made in like the early 90s maybe. It's a Craftsman. It had some sort of safety feature on it that broke off. I don't even know what it was. I had to create my own like insert plate for it when I first bought it out of wood. I'm sorry, no, it's a Grizzly. I'm looking at it. Why did I think it was a Craftsman? It's a Grizzly. It's a 10-inch contractor saw. I'm looking over at it. It's got like a cast iron top on it. Why did I think it was a Craftsman? I don't know why. But yeah, like I said, the safety feature had been broken off by somebody long ago. I had to replace the belt on it. Would I replace it if I didn't have it? It depends what project, because it was like invaluable, like using a sled on it for creating. I got it for Grant's bookcase, and so I had I had to create basically. If you've ever seen the bookcase video, I have inlaid squares creating pixel art basically out of different species of wood for like the Mario question mark block and the bricks, and I hand chiseled the cavities before I had a CNC out on those panels. And that was actually a reference back to Andy Berkey. He taught me how to use a wood chisel, which I never owned before, through Google Hangouts, I think it was. Over like 3 sessions, he showed me how to sharpen them, like using his method and all this stuff, like sandpaper and like tiles and all these like old school methods, I guess. It worked well enough where I easily cut my finger just sharpening the stupid thing.
Well, I would have loved to have seen that tutorial.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. He's like, you should be able to shave your arm with that now. And I'm like trying it. It's like, beep, beep, beep.
Is that where Jurassic got the idea? Because he shaves his arm every time he sharpens something.
I think it's a thing that they do. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. It's like a tradesman thing.
That's right. So I hand carved the little cavities with the chisels. And then the little pieces that set in there, I had to create a jig or a woodworking sled, crosscut sled, to clamp, and with like some clamps that I made to like hold the stuff in place. And they're really thin pieces. They're like less than 1/8 of an inch thick. But I could not have done that in any other way. Unless I had a CNC machine, but even then that would have been kind of sketchy to get in there with like the perfect corners, because you can't CNC something like that.
The rounded bit is always a little bit issue with that. And that cabinet's beautiful too, by the way.
Oh, thanks. He only colored on it with a crayon one time. On the top. And never again.
You learned.
Yeah.
You know, the one machine that I don't know if I would buy again, and I hate saying it because I'm not using it to its fullest, is the CNC machine. And which is weird in a way too, because I didn't pay for it.
X-Carve?
Right.
I have an X-Carve.
You gotta hand me that.
Somebody in the community gave me the X-Carve. Donald from Fun with Woodworking had gotten it from Inventables when they were doing their initial rollout to a bunch of content creators, and he got one of them because his channel was big enough at the time to warrant that kind of exposure. And then when the new ones came out, not the new Pros right now, but there was an upgraded version that came out. He got one from Inventables again that they gave him, and they recommended that he give it to somebody else, the original one they had, and he gave it to me. I was kind of beside myself. I couldn't believe that somebody would give me a machine like that. And we used it a lot for a couple of years. We started our business making signs and stuff with that, but we kind of got away from it just because it wasn't dependable enough, especially for repeated cuts. Especially because my wife was trying to use it, and just it was not user friendly enough for her. So now it's basically a tabletop for a laser. Yeah, I probably should be using it more, but we do so many other things with the other wood, and we're also short on space now too. But as of right now, that'd probably be the one that I would not buy again. I would buy a laser before I buy a CNC. But I'll say this: if I had to start over, I would probably buy a K40 instead of the Glowforge. But I would buy the large format K40 that's like 24 by 30 or something. Or the large ones. And the price isn't any different.
Yeah.
Especially now that I know how to use light burn, and I'm a lot more proficient in doing that stuff now. Which we might end up getting one of those anyways.
I do have to say, like, a couple of my talking about like hand-me-down tools or heritage tools. I don't know, whatever
I like
you
that.
call it.
Heritage tools, yeah.
Yeah, heritage tools. I have heritage tools that I would put money on they would survive a fire. I have a drill press, and I have a bandsaw, and I have like a couple other things that I inherited from my great grandpa, who was a woodworker, that are I don't even know how old they are. They're probably over 100 years old now. They're cast iron. They weigh 1,000 pounds. They're so freaking heavy. But I'm like, I would not be worried about this thing surviving a fire, because it probably would. Might have to replace a chuck and a bandsaw blade, but the structure itself, like...
Well, if it's that old, it might have already survived a fire at some point.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, so there's a couple of things I was like, yeah, I could probably walk through the rubble and still pick out a couple things that made it out okay.
This is kind of weird. So my grandfather was a gunsmith. That's not the weird part. The weird part is that I never actually... He had some tools that I was looking forward to inheriting after he passed away that were stored at my aunt's house when I joined the Navy. And as time went on, I sort of forgot about them until I didn't. And I'm like, hey, how about them tools? And she's like, oh, I sold them. I'm like, oh, perfect. So I don't have any of them. But I do have a sander, the sander that I'm pointing to right here. It is the noisiest belt sander in existence. And it was a grandfather's. It wasn't my grandfather's. It was Bob Claggett's grandfather's belt sander he gave me when I visited him one time when he still lived in Georgia, because he was getting a new one, and he gave it to me. So I cherish that thing as if it was my own grandfather's, because I don't have any stuff from my grandpa. So I'm like, it works,
Do you use it?
I do use it. It's noisy as hell, but I do use it. I could probably tweak it and probably make it better. I have not put the time into doing that. And I think it had the ability to have like a circular part on there as well, on the belt mechanism. But if I turn it on, it's like so squeaky. It's like ear-piercingly squeaky. But it does work. And I've never replaced the actual sanding belt on it. And it eats through material like crazy, like a piranha, basically.
I was going to say, it's probably pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yep. And it shoots dust everywhere. But it's great.
Hence the air filtration system.
Which is on the other side of the room, which has never been connected to it. It has some modifications that have like melted plastic to create like a chute to collect dust that I guess his grandfather made, like using a torch and like melting the plastic pieces together. Like it's 3D printing before 3D printing existed, kind of thing going on. But it's pretty funny. Yeah, but I would be sad for that if that got destroyed, even though it's not my own. It's weird. Yeah, I don't know. I think we kind of covered enough of that subject. Let's talk about something more positive, really quickly, when we have a few minutes.
This isn't my geeking out, but we talked about this before we started recording. That there was a pretty big announcement in terms of, I don't know if you want to call it geekdom or whatever it is, that we have a kind of a rough outline of the next 10 years of the new DCU slate. Now headed up by James Gunn, who was the director of all the Guardians movies and Suicide Squad and whatever else he had his hands on. And I don't know about the two of you, but I got really excited when I heard that announcement. And I don't know if it was James Gunn's very kind of confident and distinct description of that plan, but it sounded good. And the DC seems like it's always a little bit more mature anyways. And I'm glad they're not just following MCU's footsteps. It seems like it's different and distinct enough to stand on its own. And that I'm looking forward to.
Can you give a short synopsis, since you're more familiar with what he said?
Well, it was... He made a big point about saying that everything is going to be connected. So animation, TV, and movies. And anything that is not part of that is going to be labeled Elseworlds. And video games.
Yeah.
And everything else is going to be labeled something called Elseworlds, which I kind of like, that there's going to be a clear distinction about what this container is. But it's still kind of weird that, these other things are going to exist, like the Batman one, and I think there was something else too. I think I heard like Lois and Clark.
Teen Titans Go, and Lois and Clark might continue on as an Elseworlds thing. But anyways, it sounded pretty exciting. And instead of doing phases like Marvel does, they're doing what he's calling chapters. And the first chapter is called Gods and Monsters, and that sounds very fitting for what I've heard described as the main difference between Marvel and DC. Anyways, the DC is about gods. Marvel's more about humans, I guess, that have, extraordinary powers. I guess with the exception of Batman, since he is human still. But I like it. And the first thing that was mentioned was something I'd never heard of before, called Creature Commandos, which I guess is going to be an animated series. So right away, I like that it's not just, okay, well, here's Wonder Woman again, or here's Superman again, although Superman is coming. I like that. And I don't know if that's just like a brand of James Gunn to bring in something that's a little bit more fringe.
Yes.
But I like it because it's going to seem different, and I'm okay with different right now. What was your guys' impression?
I'm excited at the prospect of the DCU starting over, because it seems so. It's not that it was bad. When it was fine.
It's kind of scattershot. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. But like having a hard I don't know if it's a retcon everything that came before and wipe the slate clean kind of thing that's going to happen with the Flash movie, but having a fresh start may be a way to change the tone of the DCU and potentially the audience of the DCU, depending on like whether they make it adult or not adult, or kid friendly or not kid friendly, or I mean there's a lot of potential with changing the entire spectrum of the DCU into one cohesive unit. Do you guys think they're going to lean more adult than Marvel, or
I think so, just based on Gunn's own work within the DC universe, like being Peacemaker, which was strangely absent from the plans that he listed. I didn't.
But it got mentioned.
It did? Okay.
Because he has a project coming called Waller, which is about Amanda Waller.
Right.
And he said he says it's going to be the same actress.
Right.
Playing it, and
she did show up in that show, I think, at the very end, I believe.
Well, she was in it even before in Peacemaker.
Right.
And he said people from the Peacemaker team.
Mm.
So it's a little bit interesting.
But it's still already related to the Suicide Squad, which he did as well.
Yeah.
So, but I do think
he's not willing to kill his own babies.
Right. But it did seem like there was some room to include less adult interpretations of things, like considering like the Superman that they announced. So I'm a huge Superman fan. Like I'm more of a Superman fan than any other DC character, I would say. Growing up, I looking back at my clothing as a kid, I would always have a Superman shirt on. Like looking in the pictures recently with my son, I'm like, oh, there's another Superman. Oh, there's more Superman. Like I just always had a Superman shirt on. And they announced a movie called Superman Legacy, which is sort of they said it's the embodiment of kindness in an unkind world. They said the other guy that's co-leading DC says it focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing, and Superman represents truth, justice, and the American way, and he's kind of in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned. So it's kind of interesting to sort of have more. I'm okay with the Boy Scout kind of approach to this character, because he should be that kind of touchstone for goodness in the DC. I don't think he should be on the bad side. So if you have a spectrum of stuff from wholesome to Peacemaker, I guess, or Suicide Squad, he should be at that leading edge. And there can be content that can push against that, ideal that he's upholding, as a character. That's fine, but
so he's not going to be snapping necks, is what you're saying,
right? Even though, to be fair, Christopher Reeve also snapped necks, essentially, when he shoved Zod down a hole of a bottomless pit and let him die as a powerless, human, basically, and laughed about it as he high-fived Lois as she sucker punched what's her face. And she died in the same way, potentially. So,
it was the 70s.
It was the 70s. It was the 80s. Yeah, who cares? But I'm okay with Superman being more holistic and more of a good guy.
I've always been in that same boat, even though I really do like Man of Steel.
Yep.
I like the kind of dichotomy of Superman being almost an outcast that way, especially since everybody else seems to be so dire, especially even in contrast to Batman.
That's a great point, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, and I don't know if this is even going to be the case, but you're talking about the synopsis that you read. It reminds me a lot of an Alex Ross comic that he did of Superman called Peace. And I think there's a similar struggle in there, and the story is fantastic. If anybody has ever read it or looks for good content, check it out. And it's a beautiful book. It's an oversized tabletop comic. And everyone is hand painted by Alex Ross, but the story is fantastic as well.
And the Supergirl announcement actually has me more excited than I thought it would. As the more
it looked fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, does it look anything? Yeah, because
the description sounds cool.
But I like the description sounds cool, and I like the art that they had up during the presentation. I like that style, and it probably embodies possibly what he was talking about in terms of the her being a little bit jaded. So that's really cool.
Right.
And we haven't had Supergirl on screen since the early 1980s with that one film.
Right. That's right.
Yep.
Well, except for the TV shows.
Well,
that's
a big screen.
On film. Yeah.
Yeah, film.
Okay. Yeah. I'm kind of hopeful about the positive outlook, especially with Superman, like Wes was talking about, because I think I'm tired of the trope of our hero with a dark past is teaming up with a sidekick with a dark past who's gonna face off a bad guy with a dark past. Along the way, they're gonna meet allies, all who have dark pasts. I think it started with Batman Begins of grounding superheroes and things like that, and just taking the joy out of them. So
yeah, but that was still a fantastic trilogy.
No, I know, I understand. Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad.
We've reached the point of saturation for that. Yeah.
I think we're culturally ready for some light.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I love Teen Titans Go. I mean, it seems so silly and goofy and childish. The jokes land. I mean, The writing is just fantastic. But I mean, it's just it's happy. You watch it and it makes you happy. And I'm like, yeah, let's do more of this. Let's do more happy. I like happy.
You guys were we were talking before even about the potential adult nature of a lot of these. I'm wondering how adult is adult though. I mean, there's definitely like a range between like even like Suicide Squad and The Boys. I don't know. I imagine that it'll be adult without being too inappropriate. I would imagine they don't want to narrow down their spectrum of the audience too much, but definitely be edgier than Marvel, I would assume.
I mean, Peacemaker wasn't that far from The Boys, I don't think, as far as vulgarness. From that perspective.
I would disagree a little bit. I would disagree. Not by much. But I think I don't think Peacemaker pushed it nearly as far as The Boys pushes it. Even in terms of like nudity and stuff. Some of the jokes, I think Peacemaker is like 15 to 17 and The Boys is like 17 and beyond.
That's fair.
Any other thoughts on DC before we start wrapping things up?
I think we covered it pretty well. I'm excited.
Yeah. Hopefully optimistic. Cautiously optimistic, not hopefully optimistic. Cautiously optimistic.
I do think it's smart to use the Flashpoint as the thing to like sort of narratively explain how things can be different because he's going to screw up the timelines.
But I hope that doesn't mean that the current Flash, Ezra Miller, is the one that ending up in the new DCU.
Right.
I hope he's not the character that gets transplanted into this new universe. Hopefully he trips or something happens and then somebody else kind of stumbles through.
He gets athlete's foot or stubs his toe on like the treadmill. Yeah.
End up in jail. I don't know. So what are you guys geeking out about?
So I got an HBO Max subscription because I really wanted to watch The Last of Us. And oh my gosh, that is a good show. It's like Andor. It's talking about, similar actors, but I mean, I'm surprised how much I like it because I don't like horror. Like as a genre, I don't like horror, but I think this falls. We need a category that's like horror, but not horror.
I think it's called suspense.
It's not, but it's not suspense. Suspense is like there's like a supernatural element to it.
Which like Goosebumps.
Like Goosebumps. Like it's scary, but it's not horror. But because it's scary, it gets like grouped together with everything horror. And traditionally, I don't like horror as a genre. Because I always see it as like, scary demon, gore, possession, blood, devils, whatever. Like that's not my jam. But I do enjoy things that are dark, I guess. Like American McGee's Alice is one of my favorite iterations of Alice in Wonderland. Like I really like.
You really walk an interesting line with your dislike of horror.
See, but like I don't consider it horror. Like I think. Like before, what was it? Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Before that, they didn't have a PG-13. It was either PG or R. And so if you go back far enough, like some PGs, we look at them, we're like, that is not PG. And some Rs, we look at it and we're like, that is not R. Just because they didn't have that classification of like the in-betweenness of PG and R. And I think there needs to be like a new category of like, it's not horror, but it's not suspense. We need to figure out some lane for this type of content to be on that's like darker, but it's not like gory or gruesome or whatever.
Would you consider Stranger Things in that wheelhouse you were talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. I don't consider Stranger Things horror. It's got monsters, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just my own classification of horror, like the 80s, 90s. It's like demon baby horror. I don't know how to describe it.
It's probably the idea of being too gratuitous.
Yeah. So it's like if there was a classification of something between horror and suspense, that things like Stranger Things, Last of Us, American Mickey's Alice, that brand of content, I like that. I don't like horror. Like, I'm okay with suspense, but that said, Last of Us is incredible. The trueness to the game, I was like, I think this is the best video game adaptation I think I've ever seen. Adaptation, like it's if you've played the game, like the first episode, I'm like, holy cow, they like nailed this. It was fantastic. But I think I'm on episode 3 right now, and it's been awesome to watch. I'm geeking out about it pretty hard. Makes me want to go back and play the game again. So that's what I'm geeking out about.
I am geeking out about the news of friends of the podcast, When Geeks Craft. They're having a baby. And I'm helping them paint their nursery, which is really cool. So I get to pay it forward again with more nursery content. Which I haven't painted anything on a wall in 8 years, so it's fun. Really excited for them. It's going to be a cool addition to the Maker family, both online and locally for me. So it's nice of them to think ahead and help provide a playmate for my son. That's really thoughtful of them. Yeah.
So are you going to be kind of like a geek uncle, like a gunkle?
Gunkle.
Gunkle.
Maybe so. Yeah, my wife has already called first dibs of babysitting, so it sounds that way.
My wife loves being around newborns, so that might be my way of getting her to fly out to North Carolina.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. It wasn't Wes that did it. It was the baby.
Yep.
That's exciting. I saw their mobile that they're going to make, which I'm really happy that I decided not to make one for them, because the one that they're making it's going to be so adorable. Oh my gosh. Just that room, let alone the baby in it. Just that room that they're designing for the baby, I think is just amazing. The work that you guys are doing is fantastic.
That looks really cool. If anybody hasn't seen it, yeah, make sure you check out their socials, Wes and When Geeks Craft. It's some really cool stuff.
And they've officially announced it, so we can talk about it without.
Yes,
like
we've been keeping it secret for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
I feel kind of privileged to even have been notified early on, so yeah, that was cool. I'm geeking out about friggin' Bobby Duke. He just released a new video, and my kids are huge Bobby Duke fans. It's actually kind of annoying. I tell them new video I tell them a new video comes out. They don't care about anything else on TV. They say, okay, after we have dinner, can we go watch it? And we watch it all together. And they were laughing so hard within the first 5 minutes of the video, and it's just fart sounds and just Bobby Duke being Bobby. And he takes a like this replica little toy plastic dragon skeleton, and he recreates it with a 3D printing pen, like a 3D pen. And his process is just incredible, and he puts it together and it looks great. And he did something with it I didn't think would work. He carved into it and smoothed out the entire thing with his little Ford Dremel tool. And I didn't think it would work because I thought it would just burn and melt the plastic. But he must have a bit that works a little bit better for it or something. And he stained it to make it look like bone, and it looks absolutely fantastic. He did an amazing job with it, and the video is really funny and hilarious. So that is my pick for this week.
Yeah, I have it in my queue to watch. Because I'm like, I can't watch it without my kids, like, because they would get mad. It was
like
funny. Netflix cheating, but with my kids.
his style of video was originally the direction I wanted to go, in terms of just being like that kind of like silly, and I just couldn't do it. I could not bring myself to do it, but he's doing really well with it. So I'm glad.
And make yourself belch on cue, is that what you're saying?
Other people that can belch on cue are our patrons over at patreon.com/makegeeks. With their financial contributions, every time we release an episode, they put their money where our mouths are, and we appreciate them so very much. I don't know why you're laughing, Sean. I thought that was a very good segue. Very appropriate.
Perfect.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because you're gonna, and I know that you're gonna start it out a different way, until Donovan made that comment.
I know. I know. He started to derail it. I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to go.
You pivoted so damn fast. That's awesome.
So thanks to all of them, including our top patrons, Jordan, Nolan, Square Splinter, and Clinton. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of awesome, I don't know. I'm terrible at segues, apparently. We all have content that we make. That's why we talk about the things that we do. This is a podcast for makers, families, and geeks. And if you want to see the stuff that we do make, if you aren't following us already, which I'm pretty sure at this point, 293 episodes in, I'm pretty sure you're already following us. But in the slight chance that this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. We are all active on social media, and you could see all the shenanigans we're getting up to at any given time. Outside of the things that we talk about here on the podcast. So if you want to see all of the stuff that Sean is working on and all the new lasers that he's getting, you could follow him at Geek Builders. If you want to see all of the things that Wes is working on, you could follow him at Geek Smithing. And myself, you can follow at Once Upon a Workbench or Baba Makes.
And if you'd like to get into even more shenanigans, go ahead and check out our website, MakingGeeks.com. We have a contact page where you can send in ideas for the show, topic requests, anything along those lines. We have a shop where you can pick up some Making Geeks themed merchandise for your home or for your body or wherever you want to put it. And you can listen to all of our past episodes right there in the browser on MakingGeeks.com. We have to thank everybody for hanging out in the live chat with us. It's always really kind of fun having that side conversation go on during the show. And kind of keeps us going as well, so we're not just talking out into the ether. If you'd like to be part of that fantastic group, we record every Thursday evening, 9:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, and 6:30 Pacific. And you can find new episodes of the podcast every Saturday morning on your favorite podcast player of choice. So, from all of us to all of you, stay safe. Go check out the GoFundMe that Wes mentioned earlier on in the show. We'll have some notes and socials and stuff to make sure you can get to it. And go ahead and check out Andy Berkey's stuff, too. He's a really cool dude with a lot of great, amazing knowledge to share. And we hope he gets back on his feet soon. So,
absolutely.
We'll see you next time.